Frank's Red Hot is the perfect blend of flavor and heat, so you can use an entire bottle to make recipes like buffalo chicken dip or buffalo nachos, or even things that don't start with buffalo. Frank's Red Hot. I put that on everything.
Hey, Craig.
It's all on you. It's all on me. Can't you see? It's all on you. It's all on me. You and me. Can't you? It's all on you. It's all on me.
Hey, Craig. Right or wrong, we don't care. Win or lose, we don't care. We don't care. We don't care. We don't care.
Hey, Jeff. Well,
Hello.
Jake Digger doesn't have a winning record as WSU's football coach, so
Failure.
failure.
Fire his ass. How are you going to go lose a game?
Yeah,
Nick Rolovich didn't lose a game for like 3 weeks, so
exactly.
clearly he's the problem.
He didn't lose a game till December, or whatever it was, late
Yeah.
November.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So this is Podcast versus Everyone. I'm Craig Powers, and with me as always Jeff Nusser, and this is episode untitled. Jeff has not put the episode number up, but I think it's 142. I think it's 142.
I believe that's correct.
And
correct.
we're going to talk about this frustrating game against BYU. We knew it was going to be a toss-up. We knew it was going to be a close one. And the Cougs did just enough to lose. And I don't know how else to put it.
That's always fun. Just enough to lose.
It was a bummer. You know, as we said, this team's riding on thin margins for in that game and then in the season when it comes to a bowl game. So
Yep.
they have 4 more to win too, but 3 of those are on the road. 2 of them are with 2 of the best, maybe the 2 teams that'll play in the conference title game. You know, who knows? It's going to be a tough stretch down the road, or with the exception of Arizona, but also, who knows? But so yeah, this BYU game started out again. Maybe it wasn't just Nick Rolovich, that beautiful first drive touchdown, and then BYU drives down too, and it just like, this is going to be a shootout. We're going to have a shootout on our hands, but we were mistaken. This was not a shootout.
We were extremely mistaken.
I mean, both teams, 5.6 yards of play for BYU, 5.8 for WSU. Those don't jump off the table at you. Like it was, it wasn't there was more defense in this game than I anticipated. But ultimately, BYU's bruising run game was able to push them over the edge there at the end, and that was a bummer.
Yeah, it was funny. I was going back and looking at the drive. So you said it was a little bit more defensive than you expected, and I kind of was feeling the same way to a certain degree. And then I went back and looked at like the drives and the stats and stuff, and then like I realized, okay, so we had 9 drives in this game. BYU also had 9 drives in this game. 6 of those drives were in the first half for us, and 3 were in the second half. We had three damn drives in the second half. That's all we had, because every drive by both teams, not every drive, but most of the drives in the second half were like 5+ minute drives. And so it just was like, it was just kind of this weird, like bizarre. And in fact, by the way, our 6th drive in the first half was a 1-play kneel down. So really 5 drives in the first half. So I think the bigger sort of surprise for me as I was looking at it was, okay, so yeah, the first half, definitely a defensive half. Both teams had that great first drive, and then neither team really did anything after that. I think we finished with, like a bunch of punts after that. WSU
was driving on a second drive, got into BYU territory, and then,
Right, and then the
on
interception.
first down through an interception.
Yep.
So
Yep. And then punts on the 3 drives after that. So definitely defensive there. But then in the second half, the second half wasn't really defensive unless you just sort of say, okay, neither team really gave up any explosive, super explosive plays. It just was slow. It was lots of runs by BYU. It was a slow pace of offense by us. Now effective, 2 out of the 3 drives we score touchdowns, which is good. That's that's a good, point per drive average. But it was definitely slow. It was really, really slow. And I think that even made it feel more defensive than maybe it actually was. Given that I think there were, like I said, we scored on 2 drives in the second half. They scored on 2 drives in the second half, and there were only, they had 4 drives, we had 3 drives, so there was only 7 drives. So there were touchdowns on 4 of the 7 drives, and BYU probably could have scored something on that last drive if they had to.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a weird game from that perspective, but close nonetheless. They were right there, which, both, I guess you can go both ways with that, right? Like you can either be frustrated or encouraged. And I think I'm choosing to be encouraged.
yeah. I mean, I if they're going head to head and roughly even with a team like BYU, then they're definitely ahead of where they were when they were roughly even going head to head with Utah State at the start of the season. So
Yeah.
There's definitely things to be encouraged about. One thing that is kind of a bummer. We've talked about it, that improvement is never linear for these guys, but it still is a bummer to be in such a close game and Jaden kind of didn't have his best effort. Definitely looked more like the guy from earlier in the season than the guy that we saw the last 2 weeks. So that, missing a few throws, back to kind of some of the inaccuracy on some of the short throws. Still, I think he still wasn't much worse on his deep throws. He just hasn't been super great at those yet, but he definitely missed a few, and BYU was definitely trying to take that away, and he wasn't able often to punish them for that. And one thing I talked about with some folks after the game is during the game is, maybe he's just, because he's still coming back from injury, he's hesitant to run, because I think that he could have just got maybe BYU out of that defense if he could have just taken off, picked up 7 or 8 yards here and there, picked up a few more first downs with his legs. Maybe could have taken him out of that, but I would understand if he's coming back from an injury and running around is how he got injured in the first place, and he's not really looking forward to doing that, or maybe he's getting instruction to only do that when he knows he can do it, run safely and not get hit. So there may be that. Obviously his completion percentage was fine, but it again was where he wasn't. It was where he wasn't necessarily putting guys. I think a lot of the throws were short and they were not difficult, and he wasn't necessarily putting guys into positions where they could pick up yards after the catch and things like that. So it felt more like, watching an air raid team sometimes where the other team is dropping back and you're completing a lot of passes. They're just not getting a lot of yards. Because if you look at what Jaden had, he had 37 passes for 257 yards. And this was a guy that averaged almost 10 yards a pass last week.
Yep.
So that's not ideal. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned the air raid. The defense that BYU was playing reminded me so much of the kinds of defenses we would see against the air raid. Dropping tons of guys back into coverage, muddying things up. We really weren't able to. What was frustrating to me was it felt like, the whole point of a team runs a defense like that, they're trying to keep you from passing, and really your only real combat for that is to run it a little bit. You got to punish them when they come at you with those light boxes. And BYU was running kind of this interesting like 3-3 stack kind of thing. In theory, there should have been a lot of space in there to run the ball. But we just couldn't really seem to get it going. Maybe McIntosh might have made a difference. Just stylistically, a guy who hits the hole a little quicker and a little harder than Borghi. And Borghi had a nice game. It wasn't like Borghi had a bad game, but and
also Borghi was out there nearly every play.
Yes,
he had to have been gassed.
Yes.
He's running out of pattern, or he's pass blocking or something every single play. And even though there was only 9 drives, he's not used to that in the last couple of years, and he definitely wasn't used to that even in the air raid.
Yep.
So it's because we had so many running backs, but 18 for 83, 3 touchdowns. The 3 touchdowns what people think of a lot, but it's still there. It's you kind of hope against BYU's run defense in particular that we could have done a little more on the ground.
Yeah.
But
it feels like the kind of game where McIntosh might have made a difference, where he gets up in there and acts like a little bit of a sledgehammer and just sort of takes advantage of the space that was in there, because there was lots of space in that box. I mean, even if it was, even if maybe the numbers weren't strictly, 5-on-5 hat on hat kind of situation, there definitely should have been opportunities to get some leverage and pick up some chunks of yards. And they didn't really seem able to do it. And, I don't know how much of that also was, having to do with the offensive line's execution. I'm not a film junkie, so I can't say that for sure, but given it's reasonable to infer that the run blocking maybe wasn't as strong as it otherwise might have been, because we know the pass blocking was not maybe as strong as it has been. And then we sort of go, okay, well, why is that? Well, we can infer maybe that has something to do with getting your offensive line coach fired on a Monday. That, and then by the way, not replacing him until Friday, which is what happened when they brought in those 2 guys. And so, I do wonder, how much of this, is due to that. And I think it's hard to pin things down specifically on the coaching situation. But, you mentioned the fine margins, and it's like, there were plays to be made on the margins. And, there were a number of times where we didn't make them, whether that was, an untimely hold by the offensive line, or maybe a little bit of pressure coming on Delora at the wrong time.
Or a phantom
didn't turn
hold
into a
at
hold,
one
but
point.
or a phantom hold, right? Or, like a bobbled extra point snap, or a bad punt, or, just kind of the lack of rhythm with the offensive play calling in the first half that seemed to get better in the second half. But, by that point you're playing catch up. I mean, there were just so many things that felt like, if this had been a somewhat normal week, maybe some of these, issues, like you said, at the margins, come out in favor of the Cougs, and then they win the game. And, that's a really frustrating place to be. And I imagine it's probably frustrating for the players too. And, honestly, it just kind of, it makes me admire them all the more, because of what they've been through and how they continue to fight and battle and play hard. But it is definitely frustrating for me to see them in a situation where, they not only really wanted to win, but maybe kind of needed to win a little bit. I mean, they're still 2 wins from bowl eligibility, and it's not, it's not a, super far-fetched idea that they could win 2 more games. But also it's like, I sure would like their chances better if they only had to win 1 more game and not 2. And, had they won on Saturday, that's where they'd be sitting. So, so that aspect of it is frustrating for me. I'm sure it's frustrating for them too. And, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to get mad all over again about the former coach, but it's, it is definitely a bummer when you can sort of see how, how the absences of both, the head coach and perhaps more importantly, the assistants, you could see the impact that had.
Yeah. And you're talking about that second half. So BYU came out and had a nice, 5+ minute drive to start, but they actually threw the ball 7 out of the 11 plays on that drive. And so they weren't necessarily in full on run mode, but after they got the lead, and especially if WSU comes back and doesn't tie the game, they score a touchdown, they have a nice drive to come back right away and answer BYU's touchdown, but then, like you said, bobbled snap, which, by the way, almost could have been crazy if you're watching it. Like, there's definitely guys that Haber could have thrown to.
Oh yeah,
and he just
two wide open dudes.
He's a punter. Like, you don't expect him from Australia.
Punter from Australia who has never played football before this year.
He's never backyard football played that play at all.
No,
and so
never.
he did exactly what you would think in that situation. But so that was a bummer. And then you get. Then BYU, then they switched into the run, and then the run was really working for them because they come out and get 29 yards with two runs on the first 2 plays of the next drive. They run the ball another 3 times in a row. Then they pick up a first down on a couple passes, and they finish a drive with a couple runs. That drive, they have 3 passes and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 runs. So they're already starting to unbalance it. Then you get in their fourth quarter drives when they came out and WSU after they punted themselves, was able to get kind of an unexpected stop. I was impressed by that one.
Because after we punted, it was like, okay, this is over. Right? It was like, hey, BYU is rolling now. They are going to roll right into the end zone. And then, this thing's going to kind of be a runaway train. Then all of a sudden we get a 3 and out. It's
3 and out. You get those, they actually held Algier, however you say his name. I heard Glenn say it a lot, but
32 times in
32 times. He runs only 5 yards. So you force him into passing down, incomplete. We get a nice drop on there. And so, they punt. You're in position. They go down. They score. Nice drive. A lot of, some gutsy plays made during the drive. Especially that, that real hairy third down conversion to Travell. That looked fine. It definitely looked like a first down in the play. And then they kept showing the replay. And then I was like, oh, maybe this isn't a first down. But they gave it to him. They drove down like it wasn't they didn't have much trouble. They just no big plays, but they just picked up gains and it was a nice drive. But then of course, because of that botched extra point earlier, you're put in a weird position to, instead of just kicking an extra point to tie the game, you got to run a 2-point conversion. And they made a pretty interesting decision on the 2-point conversion. Yeah,
I liked it. I like that play call.
Why?
So I am a firm. Okay, so if I was a coach, I would be the guy that like analytics people love and football people hate. Because I'd be like the guy, whoever's coaching that college now, who was that high school coach in Kansas, who let's onside every time, let's not punt. And by the way, let's just go for 2 every time. And I would, try to cook up every weird play from, 2 yards out that I could possibly cook up to try and just get that extra point, that extra point every time. And so I don't mind a one-off play like that's trying to, that's trying to get an edge. And to be honest, it was, as I was watching it unfold, my first thought was, oh yeah, they got him. Yeah, they got him. And then the safety, I think it's a safety. I have to assume it's a safety, makes a hell of a play to recognize what's happening in the end zone. And he's coming the wrong way and he hits the brakes and flips his hips and catches up with the receiver who, to be honest, is not exactly sprinting across the end zone. He's just kind of running to space. and it was like he just like all of a sudden it was there, and then all of a sudden it wasn't. The guy had like recognized it, covered it, and all of a sudden Victor was sort of left with nowhere to go. Because if that one guy doesn't figure it out in that split second, dude's wide open in the end zone. It's an easy toss. It's a 2-pointer. And before people think, well, what are they doing? Having a wide receiver throw the ball. I did not know this until tonight, and I feel kind of silly for not knowing this. But Lincoln Victor was a 4A state player of the year in Washington at quarterback. He threw for like 3,000 yards in his career at Union High School. Won state championships, 4A state championships. Like dude was a legit quarterback. Too small for college, but he can throw. So having him throw on a play like that is not super weird. That's not like, it's not crazy. It's not having him do something he's completely uncomfortable with. So I did not mind the play call. Just because something doesn't work out to me doesn't make it bad. I think the process was good. They were going for some misdirection. One guy made a nice play and kind of blew the whole thing up. And, it's just kind of how it goes, I guess.
Here's
At
the
least I
thing.
think so.
You say that guy made the one play he recognized it. Well, why did he recognize it? Well, first you said it was a one-off play. You're saying you would use one-off plays. That's not a one-off play. They've used it before. So why did he recognize that? He saw it on tape. So you already had this on
maybe
tape.
not that exact thing, but you're right. The reverse pass.
But they've ran a
from
reverse
Victor.
pass with Victor this season before.
That's true.
And
That is
so
true.
I guarantee, how coaches are. They're
Yeah.
telling them to look for
That's
that.
true.
And
Yeah,
so
that's true.
that's not a one-off. They're saying that this guy, when they give this reverse to this guy, there's a chance he can throw the ball. And so if you're looking and seeing that, they can read what the offensive line's doing, read whatever else is happening. Victor didn't disguise it very well.
No.
We all knew he was passing. He was a quarterback in college, but he doesn't rep as a QB every single day for the last 3 years.
True.
And he doesn't rep against Division I athletes for the last
True.
3 years as a quarterback. I still think there is some validity to saying, well, you're putting this massive play in the hands of a wide receiver pass.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because he did make a terrible decision. Like, he could have just pulled the trigger. That he did have space to throw the ball, but he waited, and then there wasn't space, and then he waited, and then or he could have sprinted towards the end zone, made that decision, maybe could have gotten close, waited too long, and then he was then he decided to run to the end zone. He was tackled. So fine, it's fine, but I still think it wasn't that much of a one-off, because as soon as they ran the reverse, everyone knew it was a pass. We all knew it was a pass.
Yeah, it's true.
BYU's watched just as much WSU film as we have, so they saw it too, which sucked. It would have been really fun if they converted it. Like you said, any play that didn't work, people are going to be mad. I think they were going to get mad because you're almost always going to throw the ball on that, because in the NFL you get the ball on the 2, but in college it's on the 3.
Yes.
And that's a big difference when it comes to running the ball at the goal line where
it's
there's
a
not much
huge
space. So I do not think there was ever a case where they were going to hand the ball off to Borghi and hope he scores. Maybe if it was some sort of read option, but it's very clear that we are not using the read option with Delora right now.
No.
If it
That
is,
might
it's
have been a
just
good
token.
spot to use one, though.
Yeah. So I don't know. I have no like idea of what a better play call would be. Whatever. Probably something clearing out for Harris in the flat or something like that. But yeah,
Or like a rub route or something.
I'm not going to say I liked that play.
Yeah, I mean, I won't say, like, I won't look at it and go like, oh, like that's the best play they could have possibly called. I'm just sort of like, conceptually, I don't hate the idea of, trying to get some misdirection, trying to fool somebody, and maybe trying to get a wide open play versus kind of forcing something. But yeah, I mean, it didn't work, and maybe you're right. Maybe it's because maybe it was too similar, to when they tried to do that before. That's entirely possible. But I guess like I definitely, like, I don't mind it if it's, I just don't mind something that's a little bit adventurous, as long as it seems like it's, it's got a purpose rather than just being cute to be cute. And there have been times this year where it seems like we've been cute just to be cute. This didn't feel like that to me. This just felt like, they were trying to draw something up that was clever. And I think it was clever, except, like I said, the one guy made a really nice play, and you could be right that's why he made it. But the reality is, if that one guy takes literally one more step, the direction he was already going, that wide receiver's wide open, and it's just a little flip for the conversion. So, I don't know, man. Sometimes people just make a good play, and, sometimes you just kind of have to tip your hat. And that really sucks too, by the way, when that's the difference in the game. Although, as I said, there's a chance that if BYU had needed points there, they would have gotten points there, given the way that was going. But I don't know. Maybe if they don't just have to run out the clock, maybe they try to throw it, and maybe that's better.
Well, yeah, that's what I was kind of alluding. That's what I was kind of alluding to earlier when they were playing in a tie game. When they came out at the start of the second half, and when it was a tie game, they were throwing the ball a lot more.
Yeah.
And once they got that lead, even if it was a 1-point lead, they flipped the switch and they're running the ball. They're going run pass if they have to. And so I definitely think they're running that last drive differently, which probably would be to our benefit because our pass defense is significantly better than our rush defense.
Yes.
So if we're able to, if they're thinking that they need to throw the ball to score, we're going to be more of an advantage, or still mix it up, because for them they were like, well, if we're just going to run the ball on this final drive, and if we get stopped, well, at least the clock's running. Because they even ran the ball on a 2nd 11 after they got a false start. They ran it.
Oh
again.
yeah, they
were going to run that ball.
They were going to run it no matter what, and then dare us to score. Even on that third down, it was third and 8,
third and 7.
Yeah, and they were just gonna they were gonna run it, And the thought was, okay, we'll probably be short, and we'll probably punt, and okay, they're gonna have to, they're gonna have less than a minute to try and score. To
go
good luck.
Probably, they probably punt it in the end zone, and we're probably having to go 75 yards to go get a field goal. Which honestly, that's all we would have had to get was a field goal.
Yeah. But still, they probably liked their chances, and then and then it didn't matter.
It's that was a bummer.
Total,
because you knew they were going to run the ball.
That was so deflating. Oh, yeah.
And
the run defense is such an issue, man. It's such an issue.
Because we knew they were running the ball, and they were running the ball with the same damn dude. Over and over again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times in a row. The same guy.
Yep. For 50 yards.
Yep.
One guy. It's just like, God damn it. So frustrating. Basically, we've gotten to a point this year. I know that there's only 4 games left, but, after 8 games, basically, things are pretty clear. If we are facing a team that's got a big line and runs the ball well, they're going to run it on us. That's just kind of where that is. Every team that fits that bill has done it this year. We've shut down some teams from running the ball. Those are teams that generally suck at running the ball already. Right. So, okay, we shut down Stanford. Well, Stanford is shit when it comes to running the ball, so you can't take anything away from that. Cal, generally has been pretty shitty running the ball. Not terrible, but not really good, and they were really good when they were okay when Garbers was the one running the ball. And so to have us, shut them down to some degree running the ball is, again, not entirely, crazy, but, Utah ran over us, BYU ran over us. It's, and so I get a little, I'm a little worried about what might happen the next 2 weekends. I think if there's anything to take away positive, though, is that despite all that, they still only gave up 21 points, which was, to some degree a function of the pace of the game, right? Which we already talked about, but still, 21 points is, reasonable and doable.
Well, yeah, you're going 21 points in 9 drives. So that's 2.3 points a drive. So if it's a normal 12 drive game, you're at, what is it? you're at 27 points. So, which if we gave up 27 points at BYU, I wasn't going to freak out in like a normal game. That's like about what we would have. That's under what I predicted. Is about what you predicted. So yeah, if we have a defense that gives up 27 points to offenses as good as BYU's, that's a middle of the road defense. Really. So the defense definitely wasn't a massive issue. Obviously, the offense didn't get a ton of drives to work with either, and like all things considered, like but you would hope after what they did the last couple weeks, there was just maybe one more scoring drive is what would have been great. Even just avoiding the turnover. Luckily only turned it over once. They did get one drive. They were out. That was the second quarter. One of the punts they got, Jaden hit Harris for a big third down, and early on you saw that terrible BYU, the whole game really, you saw that BYU like third down defense was not good. But especially early on, it really felt like, because that first drive we picked up a couple, and then even in when we were punted, we had picked up a couple. And so you start from a 2nd and 20, you get a 12-yard to Hobart, and then Jaden finds Harris on a 15-yarder, and you're like, heck yeah, they're into BYU territory inside the 40. But that, in a game this close, the decision by a ref like that becomes so much bigger. Because if you looked at that replay, there wasn't much there. Ryan had the guy beat, and he tucked in. As Jamie Vinnick said on Twitter, he turtled up. And so Ryan kind of fell over him. And they call holding. And the guy wasn't going to make the play. He was laying on the ground. Which makes it all the more frustrating. Refs got to do what they got to do, I guess. And so now you're at 3rd and 18, and the drive's over. So
yeah, that was, I would say honestly, my bigger disappointment. We spent all that time talking about the defense, but as we said, like the point production from the defense was entirely acceptable. You would hope for more out of the offense, right? Like that was kind of the big thing. The offense had been cooking. Under, the previous play caller. And so now you switch play callers and everything that you were sort of worried about happening. And by the way, last week on the podcast, I said, hey, I'm not convinced that Smith's play calling will be problematic. Like I'm curious to see what he does. No Rolovich around, no Stutzman around. He's just the one making the calls. And then the first half, it was everything that we were scared that it might be. It was really, really bad. No rhythm, no pace, no tempo. It really just felt like a mess. And, so to that end, I'm glad the second half worked out okay. Again, we scored touchdowns on 2 out of 3 drives. So, I don't know that you can really complain too much about that. So that makes me hopeful going forward.
In defense of the play calling too, though, on the next drive after that one, they pick up a first down. They're out to near midfield on the 44, and on first down, another holding penalty.
Yes.
So now you're going from 1st and 20, and you get a couple incomplete passes, and they pick up 16 on a pass to Borghi, but then you're still punting from the 4th and 4 on the BYU 50, which maybe that's something different with the new coach. I got to think that Rolovich would have went for it there.
Yeah.
4th and 4 from the BYU 50.
Yeah. Maybe depending on how, what the offense was doing up until that point. So you could be right about that. That may have turned that direction. There was just a feeling for me as I was watching it. Like it's kind of hard to describe it, and maybe this is all just bullshit anyway, because, I don't know how we love to quantify things, and I don't know how you quantify this, but, for the last few weeks, it just sort of felt like there was this, symbiotic relationship between Delora and Stutzman, right? And it just like you watch Delora, and he definitely, again, not to play total armchair psychologist, but, he is very animated with his body language. And you just get a sense of when his energy is there, when he's feeling good, when you feel like he's seeing things, he's up at the line, he's pointing things out, he's barking stuff out. There's just kind of a rhythm to what he's doing. And it's not necessarily like tempo in the sense of going fast, but it just like, I don't know, it just feels like everything is purposeful. With Smith, it just felt like, especially in that first half, it just felt like everything was just slow. Like the subs were slow. Getting the play call in was slow. Like Delora did not look like he had, command of whatever it was he was supposed to be doing at the line. And not that he looked lost, but just like that you could just tell when he's kind of oozing that confidence. And it just felt like it wasn't there in the first half. And so some of that I think I figured out a little bit in the second half. It still felt a little arrhythmic in the second half. So I'd love to see some of that come together. I'd love it if our tempo would come up at least just a little bit. Getting plays in a little quicker, getting calls in a little quicker, getting personnel in a little quicker. And don't make it so that Delores, trying to point out, who's picking up the mic with 5 seconds left,
Right.
in the play clock. So I think there's room for improvement there, but I also think the second half was much better than the first. And I just want to feel like it's clicking. And it never, even when they were moving the ball in the second half, it never really felt like it was clicking. Like it has felt for the last few weeks. I don't know if that makes any sense. I don't know if anybody else felt that way, but that was just kind of the way it seemed to me as I was watching it unfold.
Yeah, and because there was a lack of big plays, it never felt like the offense was really dominating at any point. It didn't feel like they didn't have any easy drives. They had some pretty efficient drives, like with some 10, 11-yard pickups, but after the last couple of weeks when they're breaking off 30, 40, 50-yard plays, we didn't get those. And I mean, that was a direct, in part a direct result of what BYU wanted to happen. But,
well, and maybe that's where the lack of tempo really sticks out. Because when you're just kind of picking up 4, 5, 6 yards at a time, just kind of little dink dunk, when you're doing that and everything's you're taking 35 seconds off the play clock every time, it starts to feel very sluggish, right? Now, if you take 35 seconds off the play clock and then boom, 15 yards, it's like, it feels different, right?
Right. Yeah. So I don't know, man. It was just a real bummer overall. Really wanted it to win for the guys. Like I just, I don't think there's been many games when I've cared more about, when I've considered more, the emotional state of the players after losing or after winning or whatever. But yeah, they came over. We were up in the Legends Lounge in the FOB, and so they're right in front of us, singing the fight song at the end, and you could just see like so many heads down, and they were just so bummed, like, and it was just, they looked just like gassed and like emotionally, it's tough, like, because if they go out and win, then the whole week feels better for them. And the whole season feels better. And if they get to a bowl game, all they've had to go through this season feels a lot better. And winning this one and getting to a bowl game, that if they won this one, it felt almost a certainty. Now they have some work to do, and so it's just I want all these things for these players more than I want it as a fan. I feel like they deserve a lot more. And so I hope they can come back and get 2 more wins down the stretch and get to a bowl game, or 4 wins if they want to do that. That'd be cool too.
Yeah, I'd be okay. Well, if they do that, they probably win the Pac-12 North. So
yeah, so go ahead
not
and do
for
that.
sure, but probably.
Well, they need the Beavs to lose again, but
yes. But I think there's a pretty decent chance that happens.
Yeah.
So.
But yeah. Any other final thoughts you want to wrap up on this one, Jeff?
No, I mean, you sent a picture from your location, which I know you're going to talk a little bit more about. Your location during the game. You sent a picture of the team as they had, walked over to where the band was to sing. I assume sing the alma mater or whatever with the band. And it was funny. I, like most fans, I think, I watched the game, and, as the game was going on, I very much had a very, I had a very typical, sort of fan experience. Like I was excited, I was frustrated, I was angry, I was, just kind of all these things, as you would think of as a very typical game. And then then the game ended, and you send this picture, and you were just like, I wanted this so bad for them. And then I was just kind of looking at him, just going like, oh my God, like that's like, all of a sudden it hit me what they had been through, and just how like kind of devastated, they must be, to be in that position. And it just sort of like, I just felt for them, big time in that moment. So I want so badly for them to succeed, just like you said. These players are truly the ones who deserve all the credit here. When Rolovich was trying to navigate his way through a problem of his own making, it just felt like there was way too much credit going his direction for that, right? Like people were like, oh yeah, he sure deserves a lot of credit for, helping the team through this, and the team's still playing hard, and the team's getting better even while he's doing this. And I'm like, maybe it's not him. Like maybe it's these guys in there who are the ones making this happen. And, now that he and, four other guys are gone, and the team comes out and plays like this. I mean, yeah, there were some issues here and there, but, for the most part, man, they played valiantly and fought super hard. And, I'm super proud to call them all, Cougs, and, just really, really impressed with what they were able to do on Saturday. And, even if they had rolled over, I think I still probably would have been like, it's been a tough week. But the fact they didn't, I think speaks highly of them and their character, the kind of people they are. And I'm just, hugely proud to have them as representatives of our university. So, happy for them that they were able to, put in a performance they were proud of, even if the result didn't go the way they wanted. And as I'm finishing up my Monday after column, kind of the big takeaway is the worst is over, right? Like
yeah,
the worst is over. And so now they've got a full coaching staff, that will have, they'll have a full week of preparation and teaching and everything else they need for this weekend. I mean, Arizona State is very tough. I don't expect that they'll win, but I do, just think that everything's now moving in a more positive direction. And, and they can certainly, wrap their arms around that and be happy about that, and know that, the drama, at least as it relates to their former head coach, is in the rearview mirror at least as far as they're concerned.
Yeah. And, you mentioned that picture, and I mentioned I was in that Legends Lounge, and so I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about that. But, that was a pretty unique experience during the game. So thanks to, my friend Brad for, winning that in an auction, so we could all, have the opportunity to chip in on that, but also thank him for, giving a little more so we could have it, during a rainy and cold game instead of early in the season. So that was really cool. I'll tell you, it's pretty nice when you get in and you have a bunch of shrimp and bacon wrapped jalapenos, during the first quarter and the second quarter. And then around halftime, they bring out the steak and baked potato and asparagus. That was pretty nice for your nice little lunchtime, halftime meal. And then they bring out lava cake and apple pie and everything at the end of in the fourth quarter. And then beer the whole time, beer and wine or whatever the whole time.
Woo.
That was it was quite a fun time and really cool. A guy named Mark Hendrickson, who helped my dad on with his loan for his house, which I'm guessing a lot of our listeners know about the trouble that my dad had last year with his house burning down. Well, not burning down, but catching on fire and being unlivable. And then he's had to. It's been really hard for them to find kind of a permanent home. They found another place to rent, which wasn't such a nice place to live. For a while, and they were getting frustrated. It's, the Yakima housing market is pretty much as tough as any of the housing markets in the state right now. So it was very tough for them to find. When they finally did, had all the heartbreaks, but they finally have a house that they've been living in for, around 3 months now. And, Mark had, messaged me earlier in the season and just was like, hey, I'd love, if you, could go to, if I could send them to Pullman for a game and, we'll get them a hotel and get them tickets and I just want to make sure that you'll be there when they go. And so my dad and his wife, so he found me on Twitter and he messaged me this. So I was like, hey, well, I got the perfect game. And so we got him, so he paid for their part to go into to Legends Lounge. They got to be there with me. They also, obviously finding a hotel in Pullman is pretty hard and ridiculously expensive. So I was just like, hey, they can stay with me. And so in lieu of that, they got them dinner at South Fork and a nice little shopping spree at Crimson and Gray. They just had an incredible weekend with all that, and then just the Legends Lounge was so cool. They were just loving every minute of it. Who doesn't love to be like pampered like that and just feel like feel so cool about all that. And so obviously they lost, but that was a bummer. But it was really nice to have that nice celebration for them to finally be in the house. And so again, thank you to Brad and his brother Brian, who helped do some of the administration work and making sure to get everyone in there. And it was obviously they put it out to their friends, and they had plenty of responses to the point where there was a waiting list. So I'm glad that we got in early. I'm glad that I was on top of that. Not that my nice other seats wouldn't have been fine, but yeah, it was pretty fun there. One thing we heard from the staff is that usually the people in that lounge just sit at the tables in there and like chat, have some drinks, eat the food or whatever. But
no, not you guys.
Our entire group was up at the window. There was like one little like part of it that would open that people would yell out of, or we would just be screaming, chanting, doing all the Cougar first downs and all those, all that stuff, singing the fight song. With my sailor language during the game, which if you've ever listened, if you listen to this podcast, I'm not afraid to say fuck. So apologies to the children next to me, but hey, you're at a football game, so whatever. That was super cool. I'm not trying to brag, but I am trying to brag. That was really cool to experience. And I would love to do it again. So Brad, go ahead and bid on those next year. I'll be happy to attend again.
I'm sure you'll be happy to help him out with that.
Yeah.
I love it.
But yeah, so I guess on that note, let's take a break and then we'll come back and talk about some other sports, talk about a big donation week for WSU. Woo. Talk about just a massive weekend for Wazoo sports overall in Pullman. So we'll be right back.
We're back.
Jeff, you know what I got to do?
What do you got to do?
On the way to... No, I got to do. Sorry.
Oh, got to do.
I'm a podcaster. You'd think I would be more articulate. But no, what I was able to do, because I was able to leave early enough on Friday, was have lunch at Pretty Fair Beer on Friday on the way to Pullman, which is the dream, man. And a beer, of course, which is real nice. I was driving for a couple hours, pulled off, and my aforementioned friend Brad and his partner Shauna also stopped. They were right in the area at the same time, so they saw that I had said I was there, and they stopped by too. And so we got more. We got to see the advertising work again. But I've now I know that some of the people that have went there, some of our listeners just go back there all the time. So if that's that is, if that's not a good sell, then I don't know what is. Obviously
I
you
don't
go
either,
there
man.
because you for some reason trust me, but you should trust me on this one. It's a great place. I had a buffalo chicken sandwich. That was very tasty. Just a lot of I love it. Big old melty cheese on there. Lots of chicken. It's a grilled sandwich, which is kind of nice because I eat nothing but fried food generally when I go to Pullman. So I had a grilled buffalo chicken sandwich and a side salad. So I was just feeling like such a healthy dude, such a healthy dude. But yeah, very tasty. They had the pretzel bun and all that. Really good stuff. So check that out if you're driving through. Check out that food. But yeah, also, so this time I had during the week had no time to even run to the beer store, which is like a thing of dad life that you find out later is sometimes even scratching out an hour in the evening is not happening. But so I didn't make it to the beer store all week or even Tacoma Boys. So I was just, I was hoping that I could be saved by that Pretty Fair beer cooler. And I loaded up. I grabbed four packs plus a couple other beers and threw them in my coolers on the way over. That was great. Highly recommend. I picked up one in particular. It's not the beer I'm drinking now, but now I'm forgetting what it's called. Frequency something. It was from it's from Dwinell Country Ales with varietal. And it is a Brett conditioned lager. And the funny thing is I went over and grabbed my cans and I missed it. And then Brad picked it up and I was like, oh, I need that too. And I think I got the last 4 packs. So sorry, you can't get that one anymore. But also when we were leaving, I saw Tyler throwing a bunch of Structures cans in the cooler. And I was like, oh, I've already closed out twice, so maybe I shouldn't do that again. But yeah, so definitely great. I picked up some. One of the beers. I always let you go first, but I'll talk about one of the beers I picked up that I'm drinking right now. Yeah, it was nice to be able to not only stop and get some beer or stop and get some lunch, but also fill up my coolers with great beer on the way to Pullman when I didn't have time to do that, and get some really unique beers that I couldn't get. I got some stuff I got some Holy Mountain Fest beer. I got some beer from Lowercase. I got some beer from Urban Family, some great breweries. And, so I was able to supplement what I was lacking. So, but the beer was called Frequency Illusion, by the way. It was a Brett conditioned country lager. It was very tasty. Highly recommend.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah, so that's well, hold on.
Yeah.
That's Pretty
Okay.
Fair beer, as I've said before, and I want to make sure that it's in downtown Ellensburg. And part of the reason we love it is they are run by Cougs, proudly run by Cougs. Tyler, one of the owners, was telling me all about going to Homecoming, how much fun he had there. As a bar owner, that you can only get to so many games, but so he was really excited to get to that one. So proud Cougs. We just talked about Coug football the whole time I was there, and obviously there's a lot to talk about this week. So that was nice. And yeah, check out their Twitter, at Pretty Fair Beer. They tweet on the Cougs all the time. So check them out. Downtown Ellensburg, great place to stop by on the way to or from Pullman.
Yeah.
But yeah, Jeff.
Oh, is it my turn now?
Now you can tell me, what are you drinking?
I'm going with an old standby that it's an oldie but a goodie. It's an Old Rasputin Russian Imperial Stout by North Coast. Yeah, which I love. And so I picked it partly because I love it. Costco had it in pints, which was great because normally I have to buy it in a bomber and I typically don't want to drink that much of it. But so they had it in pints, which was great, pint cans. And I thought this was appropriate for tonight because the tagline on the top says "Never say die," and I thought, that's appropriate for our Cougs. Never say die. We might have thought they were dead, just like old Rasputin, but no, not dead. Still alive, still kicking.
Awesome. Yeah. So I remember Old Rasputin is the beer that got me to get my dad to start drinking craft beer, right? Which I know doesn't sound like an entry level beer, but my dad was like all about Guinness. He was Guinness all the time.
I could see that though. Yeah. Like this is a little sweet, especially for like an imperial stout. Definitely a little on the sweeter side. And so I could see where someone might be like, ooh, yeah,
yeah.
as a crossing over.
I remember us being at, I think it's called Tap House. It's like a chain downtown, and so I think you saw us later that day. I think we did a second trip. There was a basketball game.
Yeah, we met you at Tap House. Yeah, there was a Key Arena game.
Yeah,
Klay Thompson Key Arena.
Dad and I did like either we were just there for a really long time, or we were there earlier and came back because we were at the bar, and then when we sat with you and Sarah and some other folks at a table. But I remember, so my dad, he got a flight of stouts. And he got like a lot of the standards. He got like Young's Double Chocolate, Guinness, whatever. But I said, like, Dad, the last one, and I want you to drink it last, you should get Old Rasputin. And he did. And he loved it. And he drank Old Rasputins the rest of the night. Like a lot of them. 9% Old Rasputin. So that was fun.
Yeah.
And then we went to a Cougar basketball game. That was also fun.
Well, I still remember what I had that night. That was the first time I ever had Pliny the Elder.
Hell yeah. That was awesome.
So,
So the reason you don't get that in Pliny the Elder in Washington anymore is because of Washington's archaic distribution rules. So Pliny or Russian River was mad because they couldn't basically distributors. If you're not distributing your own beer, distributors, they get to decide where the beer goes. So Russian River was not happy about this because they didn't like they wanted their beer to be at places where people who really like good beer could buy it because they have higher end stuff. And so if like a Safeway ends up with a $6 IPA back in 2011 on the shelf, like people probably aren't going to buy it, right? In like this weird glass bottle or whatever. So they were not happy about that. So they pulled out of Washington in, I think it was 2012. So we have not had, to get the closest you can do to get Pliny the Elder is to go down to, Portland, at this point.
That's some bullshit.
Yep.
That's all I'm saying.
So thank you, 3-tier weirdo Washington distribution beer system. But yeah, so I am drinking Phantasm Express from Urban Family. It is a hazy IPA with Citra, Nelson Sauvin, these are hops, Vic Secret hops, and something called Phantasm Powder. Jeff, have you ever heard of Phantasm Powder?
I have not, but it sounds very almost erotic.
So I had never heard about this. So Tyler at Pretty Fair Beer pointed it out to me. He's like, yeah, they use this Phantasm Powder, and I thought, oh, is that like a cryo powder? Because they have these like cryo frozen hops that they create powder out of, and that's been big on people have been using this, but this isn't a hop at all. So it is a powder derived from New Zealand Marlborough Sauv Blanc grapes, which are rich in thiol precursors that are known for creating aromas of citrus, guava, and passion fruit. This product called this is from New Image Brewing. They explained it to us. I don't know what New Image Brewing. They're just very good at the SEO game. This product called Phantasm, created by a company of the same name, has been incredibly allocated during its. That's a really weird statement. This is an incredibly allocated during its development, but has finally become more wildly. Oh, I see what they mean. Like allocated as in tough to get.
Yes,
they only gave it to certain people, but it has become more widely available for experimentation amongst brewers. So this is not even a hop that they're using to get those flavors you're typically trying to get from these new hops. So it is a powder from a grape, and that's pretty interesting.
It is interesting.
Now I'm drinking it, and So Citra, Nelson, Vic Secret, those are hops that you're looking for those similar flavors as well. So I can't tell you 100% that it comes from that, but I will say this is very aromatic and fruity IPA, and definitely hits those marks, especially for a hazy that you're expecting. It's got a nice body to it, so good stuff. I always think I probably don't drink enough Urban Family beer. They make a lot of good beer. Probably a brewery in Seattle that I should hit up more. It's just I end up buying from here and there, and they do a lot of like fruited sours, and I'm not fruited like kettle sour type beers, and I don't typically go for those, but a lot of people really like them. And so I don't end up with those. Those are the ones that are easy to get. They do a lot of different beers, but those are the ones you usually see. And as you know, Jeff, I haven't been like hunting down hazy IPAs as much lately. So
Yes.
that's also something the Urban Family is quite known for. So if you like hazies, check them out for that too. And they make some long sours too, saisons, things like that. So very good. They are in Magnolia. I don't know why.
That'd be a hell of a deal.
They're in
man, getting
Mongolia,
beer all the way from
yeah.
Mongolia, dude. That's
Go check them out.
Wow.
Drive on up. No, in Magnolia. I'm sorry. That was quite a misstep.
that was awesome.
But yeah, so Magnolia, check them out, which is just south of Ballard. But yeah, so that's what I'm drinking. Those were our pretty fair beers of the episode. Pretty Fair Beer in Ellensburg, proudly run by Cougs. Check them out. So Jeff, it was a pretty big week of money for Washington State University.
How about that?
And a pretty
how
big week
about
of
that?
breaking news for Coug Center.
No. How about the fact that firing the coach via a widely popular policy, no matter what the extremely loud people on Twitter say, did not somehow cripple the athletic department and its fundraising arm, and instead resulted in $3.5 million in donations. Now, I don't want to say that like it's one is necessarily directly connected to the other, but I think it's also equally obvious that whoever these people who made this I shouldn't say whoever, they're public, the Alger family, they certainly didn't hold their donation back because we got rid of our coach. So yeah, I'm okay with this. I think we came out ahead in the end, man.
So, and the big news connected with the Alger family's donation is that it completed the fundraising for the IPF, the indoor practice facility.
Yep.
So we can finally get rid of that ass that that's just been bothering us for so long.
Mike Price's big ass can finally go away.
Yeah. The beloved ass. So of course we're talking about the air sustained structure, the current indoor practice facility.
Yes.
But yeah, so, very cool. This is a very good thing for WSU. This doesn't necessarily put them ahead of anybody, but it is a big part of catch up, and very cool that it was completely funded through donation, because they were completely bonded out. They could not borrow any more money to do these capital projects for athletics. So that to get the donation, get the donations is a big deal for WSU. I don't know about you, Jeff, when I saw that $25 million, I was like, oh, we're never getting there. We're never getting there.
Yeah.
And Chun did it.
Yep. Yeah, he did. I mean, that's obviously something he is very good at. Something that he has, and I should say he and his staff too. He doesn't do these things alone. We just don't know who those people are, know any names. I'm sure there are people who know those names, but I certainly don't. But still, the team, whatever team effort was required to pull this donation in, is amazing. We are well known for not, having big donations, which has really been the big thing. I'm sure we've talked about this before, but, is really the big thing separating us from, a lot of other schools, which is we just don't have We just don't, for lack of a better term, right? In fundraising, they call it the whale, right? Like we just don't have the whales, at WSU. We have a lot of mid-level donors,
Yeah, the
your
hogs.
25, yeah, your Wade Hogs, or is it Hogue? I don't know. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong. But you've got people like that. You got people who donate, $25,000, $50,000, $100,000 a year, which it obviously is not chump change. Like I'm not, believe me, I can't donate that kind of money at all. But also when you compare it to our peers in the Pac-12 conference, it really is small dollars. And all it really takes is having, one or two major benefactors to make up that difference, but we just have not had that. And so to secure a multi-million-dollar pledge, is massive. It's really massive for us. Like you said, when that first number came out of, 25 million, all of a sudden it's just like, how the fuck are we going to raise 25 million bucks? Like I can't even fathom how this is going to happen for us. And it did. So that's super awesome. I'm very excited. I don't think the IPF is a major, and I know this is going to sound kind of pessimistic. Like I don't think the IPF is a major game changer. Just like I don't think the football ops building was a game changer. What it was it allowed us to not fall further behind. Like it's if you're going to recruit people at a Pac-12 level, you better be able to say, hey, if you're coming to Pullman and we're going to ask you to work out and do all these things, then you need to have an indoor space where they can go that's not basically a piece of carpet laid under a giant bubble. That turf in that bubble is pretty notorious for being horrendous. And it's like concrete. Like it's just a bad situation. So, super awesome, really good. It'll allow us to still compete, which is really kind of where we're at. Again, it's not the sort of thing that's going to make us maybe jump, to like, oh yeah, now we're going to start landing, way better recruits. Like actually it'll just help us, land more of the guys that are typically in our realm. And that's good. That's good. So, super excited, super happy and just thrilled that, Pat Chun continues to deliver on fundraising.
Yeah. And I will say, it was interesting to see, I do think there are people that are there definitely are people that are bailing, from, interacting with the university because of this, because of Fire and Rollo. But so, if you looked at maybe Lot 1 RV, our RV Lot 1, this weekend, there was definitely a lot more space available. And you kind of heard people saying like they were done, like they're done after this year, or people were already done. But one thing is that, Lot 1 isn't necessarily the biggest donors. Often it's because we have an accumulative function to our CAF ranking. That if someone's been donating for 30 or 40 years, even if it was smaller amounts, a lot of those people, they come in an RV and they sit in the horseshoes. Like it's not necessarily high rollers. So, I mean, if you're still able to get the donations, and we know, like Big Wade is he's not pulling his money. He's mad, but he's not pulling his money. But maybe the people that are mad aren't the people that had as much skin in the game necessarily.
Yep, I think that's fair.
It was definitely there, but I mean, I saw someone at the game with a Fire Roll or We Love Rollo, or We Love Rollo sign jumping up and down in section 2 or whatever, and then we saw at the famous College of Spectation and Inebriation in the corner of Lot 1 on Stadium Way. Someone next to that sign had put up a cardboard sign that said "Fire Pat Chun." Clearly, they didn't hear about the $3.5 million of donations this week. I guess I don't know. But yeah, I mean that kind of sentiment, "Fire Pat Chun" over him having to fire Nick Rolovich and not really having any other choice, is kind of weird. He clearly did not enjoy that. It was not something he wanted to do. He gave Rolovich every opportunity to get the vaccine and keep his job, and he would have loved it. He wasn't spiteful from the start, and it was not like, I guarantee if Rolovich would have gotten the vaccine in September, Sean would have kept him on. And so you can direct your ire at him, but I don't know what you just wanted him to also take a stand.
Always the victims, man.
Always the victims.
Always the victims.
But yeah, so I don't know if you're pulling your support for WSU over this, then whatever, man. Like, I don't get it. I don't get it. We already talked about it last week, but whatever. Happy times. We're still raising money. I hope we can get better support in the stands. It's a pretty sparsely attended game. On the 11, people always talk about the student side because the press box is on the other side, so people take pictures of the student side, and then the student section was maybe a little over half full. It definitely wasn't full, but the alumni side was barren, and there was a whole lot of fucking blue in the Horseshoe.
Yeah.
So it was.
Oh my God.
I was loud that we had the stadium sound pumped in, but we couldn't really hear the cheers that much where I was sitting, and so I was not sad about that, because what I've heard is that the BYU fans were the loud ones and WSU fans were not. And yeah, that was and you could tell this when, like, usually I have to park to get the spot I want. I have to park at least 4 hours early, and I parked, because we went to Cribs de Grey and everything. I think I parked 2 hours and 15 minutes early before the game, 10:15 a.m. or so. And there was plenty of in the lot that I prefer. There was plenty of spots available. The one next to Ferdinand's, that's my jam. So there's plenty of spots. So I at that was like, oh no. And then you just see BYU fans walking around everywhere. And then you go to the RV lot and you see some open space. You're like, okay, this is going to be a sparsely attended game. And it was. That wasn't great, especially after all week. The kids are saying, please, the students, the football players are saying, please come. And, in fairness, this was always going to be poorly attended because of, and I think I even mentioned it when we were doing our preview, like this is, the third of 3 straight weekends in Pullman. And after 2 of the biggest weekends in terms of attendance, homecoming and family weekend.
Homecoming and family weekend.
Which is sometimes kind of a pseudo homecoming because of so many legacies that we have at WSU. We like to indoctrinate.
Yes.
But yes, it was, but it's still, it's like, it was not good. It was one of the, I think the official attendance was 22,000. I would say it was half of that. Like, it was bad.
That's such a bummer.
Yeah, that was a bummer. Maybe it was the Rolo thing. Maybe everyone decided to leave. No, it was, I highly doubt it. I think it has more to do with the 3rd straight game in 3 weeks thing, which we had twice this season.
Well, let's also be honest too, like that you and I and other fans might look at BYU and go, that's a cool matchup. BYU's pretty good. That's not everybody. Like, there are plenty of people that would look at that and go, okay, I can go see, whatever Pac-12 team, right? I can go see Stanford. I could go see, whatever, or I can go see, freaking BYU, like, whatever, mid-major, it's like, I just,
all week there ended up being like the rain was pretty, like, not bad at all. But all week, like, the broadcast or the forecast was like rain all day, rain all day, and then it like barely rained. Like, it rained a little bit during the
and people make their plans in advance, and so I don't know, man. There are people who think, oh, clearly it's obviously people are protesting, and I'm like, I don't buy that at all. Actually, I don't think that's true at all. Maybe there are a few people who stayed home. But I don't think it was an impactful amount. I just think we've had this problem forever. Like, and by the way, this is the 2nd time this year we've had 3 weekends in a row.
Yep.
Like, you've squeezed 6 games or 6 home games into your first 8 games, right? With no bye. So if you go to every game, you're talking about making again, if you don't live nearby, you're talking about making 6 trips to Pullman in 2 months. That's a lot. That's a lot.
I've done 5 of them. And, the only reason I didn't do the other one is because of a wedding. And I remember driving to that wedding on Saturday and thinking, this is actually nice not to drive all the way to Pullman once. But now I'm bummed because the football season's, it still feels like there's a lot to go, but there's only one more trip to Pullman. And it's a Friday night game.
Yep.
Wait for the attend. I know that was one where okay, if we have to have that one that week, Thanksgiving week, Friday is probably better for student attendance, but worse for alumni attendance. But it was just a bummer though, because it would have been really cool if we would just had at least a little more full stadium so those guys could have a little more support. And then we knew that there was going to be a lot of BYU fans there, and there was it was almost like, when we host the Apple Cup and that whole horseshoe is filled with purple, it was like that almost with blue. So it definitely, it'll be the biggest away crowd by far that we'll see. And because often a lot of the BYU fans, they just, they probably live in Eastern Washington. They don't live that far away. So they showed out and they made noise. So and they love the Cougar Pride statue. We stopped by it to take a picture after the game, and it was just a bunch of BYU fans lined up taking pictures in front of the statue. And thank you to the very nice people who took a picture of my dad and my
we definitely built
wife.
that for you just for this weekend, you guys.
Yep.
Yeah, because we heard you were coming. Thought we'd build a statue for BYU.
But hey, I
don't know, man. I can't be the only one who's super annoyed by the way they've taken over Go Cougs on Twitter. And I'm man, you didn't even call yourself the Cougs until recently. This is some sort of recent media branding. They were always the Cougars.
And why did they take it from why did we let them have it?
Yeah, well, I mean, the short answer is we've not been the best at social media branding over the years. So anyway, I think the simple solution is again, just, tweet, go fucking Cougs instead. And you don't have to worry about any Mormons getting up in there.
And also, can we just use Wazoo again?
Yes.
No one else is using that.
For God's sake. Yes. For God's sake, please.
Can we just say Wazoo? Hashtag Wazoo would be great.
Yes.
That would be great.
I'm with you. I'm with you on that one. All right. What else? Let's see. We got soccer, volleyball.
So yeah, man, I stayed
Women's
longer.
basketball?
I stayed longer in Pullman. I didn't stay all the way for that Sunday night soccer game. I was leaving as people were starting to go into that game because I was doing that math, and you get that 4.5 hour drive home. That's if I didn't stop, which I didn't this time. I made it all the way, didn't stop the whole way. So obviously soccer. We'll talk soccer first. Not a bad weekend. Could have been better. Doesn't do anything to disprove the fact that we think this team is really good.
Yep.
Because they just stood up to 2 very good teams, 2 top 10 teams, got 2 draws, and also had every opportunity to win both those matches. And I didn't get to watch them, but you did. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on them.
Yeah, so I watched pretty much the whole USC game. That one was fair. I mean, I would say that we had the better of it and the better of the chances. Particularly in late in the game in overtime, USC's striker went out of the game, and she's a stud. She ended up coming in super hard, chasing a ball and crashing into Nadia Cooper, our goalkeeper, and finished the game, finished regulation. And then sort of hit the ground on the sideline after the final, and I'm laughing, just because it was so odd. And basically they didn't report this, but it seemed pretty obvious she had a concussion, because she had sunglasses on, and it was, 9:00 at night. So, pretty clear what had happened there. And USC's attack really kind of went in the toilet after that. And, we had some chances to win. To hold USC to 0 goals. This is a team that had scored, I think I told it up, 22 goals in their first 6 games in Pac-12 play. So to hold them to 0 goals was quite the accomplishment. I mean, we know WSU's defense is excellent, and that just sort of underscored it. So it didn't feel like, I guess I would say, like, the draw felt good. It didn't feel bad. It felt good. It did not feel like an unjust result. Like, it was like, okay, maybe we had the better of the chances, but, a draw was probably fair. UCLA, we should have won that damn game. Like, we had some really, really golden opportunities, in particular one with about 4 minutes left in the second overtime, where Margie Tetrizio made just an unbelievable move. So so we were playing very direct. For some people who don't watch soccer, direct just means like, thumping long balls up the field and then trying to knock them down and, gain possession there or knock it ahead to somebody else after that. So we had played a long ball, and I think it was Elise Bennett. I'm pretty sure it was Elise Bennett, headed the ball over to Tetrizio, who, knocked it down with her chest and then made a nifty little poke with her toe, to split the defenders, and she was clear in on goal. Like, all she had to do, very, very simple finish to the corner, that just about any college level forward is probably going to put away about 9 out of 10 times. And, this was the 1 out of 10. She missed the frame completely, which again, 4 minutes left in overtime. I mean, I'm sure. And by the way, second game of double overtime in 4 days. So, she is a sub, but, so she plays a little bit less, but still she had played a ton of minutes. So she pushed it wide, and then a couple minutes later, they had another chance. They had another break. UCLA had a turnover at midfield. Frimpong Ellerson is driving up the field. It's basically an odd man, in hockey they'd call it an odd man rush, right? It's like a 2-on-1. And so she plays it she kind of draws the defender in just a little bit as they're approaching the 18-yard box, passes a beautiful pass to Elise Bennett to play her in. And then of course with a lot of minutes, I don't think Elise Bennett came off the field in either game. So she played 220 minutes in 4 days, which is a lot of minutes for a soccer player. In particular, by the way we play, right? We run up and down the field a lot. So heavy touch, and it got away from her right to the keeper when, in theory, she should have been in on goal for a pretty good finish that would have won the game. And actually, Tetrizio, now I'm thinking about it, that was right before the end of regulation. Now that I'm thinking about that one, so and the one with Bennett was in the second overtime again. It was kind of right there and didn't make the play. So that's the part that was tough. It felt like UCLA. It felt like we really should have beat UCLA. But the takeaway again is, like you said, we're as good as anybody in the conference. The game against Stanford that we lost, very easily could have, we lost that one 1-0. Very easily could have had a draw or even a win in that game as well. We are every bit as good as, the major powers in the conference in California. And I think I'm a little concerned that we may get underseeded in the tournament. So I guess we'll see kind of how that goes, because we don't really have a signature win. If we do get underseeded, I don't know, man, we could make life very difficult for some people. If presuming we can get past those early round games where other, mid-major type teams tend to be underseeded as well.
Yeah. I mean, they've given up that goal they gave up to UCLA was the second goal they've given up in league play.
Yep.
Just the 5th goal all year, I believe, in all games. Now they're sitting at 4th. They obviously, if they get that win over, if they can get that one at UCLA, then they're above UCLA right now. Or let's see, they'd be at 17. UCLA would be at. Yeah, they'd be above UCLA in 3rd and probably be sitting pretty. They definitely don't have a big fish left on the schedule. They have at the Oregon schools this weekend, and then at UW, so three road matches. But Oregon's a big one.
Oregon's tricky, man.
Yeah.
Oregon's tricky.
And they're right below WSU in the standings. That's going to be a tough one. UW beat them last year. So they need to get that winning streak back going. And then Oregon State isn't terrible either. So
they are the only Pac-12 team to beat Stanford. This year. So they've got some talent.
So this is no gimmies.
We got the Sydney Studer. We got the Studer revenge game in that one. That'll be fun.
There you go. And no gimmies. Three solid teams on the road. But yeah, if you can get those, really when you play defense like they do, you got a chance anytime to win.
Yes.
Especially when
and that's part of why they've been so good on the road too.
Yep. So go out there. Got 3 more to go. If they win them all, I definitely think they'll be in the tournament. I don't know how you keep the 4th place Pac-12 team.
Oh, I think they're already in.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a concern. But it sure would be cool to make a push to win the conference. 5 points behind USC heading into the last 2 weekends. But USC, UCLA, and Stanford all still have to play each other. So that's where there's an opportunity to pick up points. If we can win out, it could get interesting.
Yeah. And they're up. Because of these games they've played, they're up to 40th in RPI. So that just their kind of lackluster non-conference schedule had them pretty low on that. But they've been rising on RPI, which they still use in soccer. We put a lot of effort into using something new for men's basketball, but all the other sports, screw them. But yeah, so soccer, volleyball had a big weekend as well. They had 2 in Pullman, one on a Friday night against Stanford, and then one on Sunday. Again, I wasn't able to make it into the game. I was waiting for my dad to get in town so he could have dinner and stuff. So I wasn't able to go to the volleyball match. But from what I heard, that was a heartbreaker. They got the first set and then had a chance to put them away in the 4th set and didn't get it done. And so that was a tough break. But again, all the other top programs, when WSU in volleyball in the conference, when WSU has played them, they've been these like epic 5-set matches. Like they've won. They beat Washington. They lost to UCLA in 5 sets. They lost to Stanford in 5 sets now, and then they crushed Colorado. So like all the other top teams, and they crushed Oregon. So they're kind of right up there with the upper echelon of the teams in the conference. And they've just had some tough, they had one really hard fought win where they had like a ridiculous 4th set that they lost to UW and then still won. And then they've had 2 really heartbreaking losses at home to UCLA and Stanford. But then you see how there's kind of like in volleyball in Pac-12, there's some haves and there's some have-nots. And I was able to see the match against Cal. Thank you to Bob, who gave me an extra ticket. I was going to go, but then I just got a ticket anyway. So able to see that match against Cal in person, and you could just see the difference in the athletes, the size and leaping ability and strength of the WSU athletes versus the Cal athletes, and just midway through the first set, I'm like, all right, we got to sweep them. And then also I have plenty of time to go to the women's basketball game. But it was, it was pretty impressive to see that it's not like we're scraping together some squads here to stay good. Like Greeny and her staff are bringing in some legit athletes that are just
Yeah.
like huge and athletic and just dominant, and they definitely against Cal, you could see that Cal just didn't have the talent to keep up.
Yep. Yeah, it's super fun result, and similar kind of deal, man. When you show you can hang with anybody in the conference, and I think volleyball is kind of in the same boat that I've said with soccer, which was that for so many years our soccer team was really good, but it also was like, man, when they'd play UCLA, Stanford, you just like the difference in the athletes would be so just obvious, right? Like we were plucky, we were gritty, we could, go toe to toe with anybody with some attitude. And, but there also was like, those athletes are kind of on a different level. And okay, so maybe if we play hard and we play really good defense and maybe we, nick a goal on a counterattack, we can beat them. Or maybe, we can eke out a draw. It's just not that way anymore. And volleyball is the same deal. It's, Washington obviously had been kind of the bully for quite a while, and, we've got some wins against Washington in volleyballs now. So it's like, we are right there now, which, that's the super, super cool part with what these coaches are building, in Pullman. Very, very excited, very, proud. I love the fact that, Jen and Burdette are both Cougs themselves. I think that makes a huge difference, just in terms of their love for the program. And, there's nothing quite like, as much as I love soccer, when volleyball is really good, there's really nothing quite like a volleyball match in Boulder. When I was in college, they were very, very good when I was in college. Sarah Silvernail as a throwback for, a lot of people who may have been in school around the time I was, so she was playing for us, and, she was someone who was on, the national team radar. She was really, 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 really good. And, so when volleyball's rocking and Boulder is full, it sure is a heck of a lot of fun, and it's it's just neat to see what all these different programs are doing, and in particular, you went and saw women's basketball. They don't look like they're ready to drop off for sure.
Oh yeah, and obviously I got to see that group in person for the first time, which was really cool.
Yeah.
Charlize Ledger Walker, every bit as impressive in person as she is on television. I tell you, she didn't have a great game, but Johanna Teder, like, she is very athletic, and
yep. If she takes a big step, that could be
Yeah.
a major development for the team.
I think she's the one to watch there, because I really liked in this game. Obviously, they were playing St. Martin's, and they're a Division II or lower, possibly.
Division II.
Yeah, Division II, and they very clearly had. I mean, if you look at what our bigs did, they had very little trouble scoring inside, and our guards had very little trouble getting by the other, the opposing guards, and so it wasn't, the competition wasn't high, but still, they beat the pants off of them, and did it relatively easy. Like they were definitely playing hard, but like no player played more than 21 minutes. They played the whole bench. When they were playing the bench, they were extending the lead still. So that was nice to see. It was nice to see a lot of the players that don't always get to play. But yeah, I think Teder, Bella is, she made some nice post moves. Hopefully she can take a step forward. I know you could just tell by the way, Cammie stays on her that she knows that Bella is like kind of a secret to unlocking some things for them, obviously.
Yes.
Because if she get rolling, I'll say Ula's 3-point stroke looks better. She knocked down a couple threes. One was kind of lucky; it bounced around, hit the backboard, and went in. But one was just pure straight down center. And I
would be huge.
I was talking to our writer Bryce, who's a manager on the team, and he was just saying, yeah, she's really worked on that. Yeah, because if she can just be, get a couple threes a game in there, that's a huge deal. And she actually led the team in scoring because she didn't miss a shot. She was 7 for 7. But yeah, so that was it was super fun. And I would say, like, for a women's exhibition game, That was a decent crowd, and like probably a more decent crowd than some of the Pac-12 or Pac-10 when I was in school. Women's games I went to. So that was pretty fun. They seemed very appreciative that just to have people in the stands. They went through this dream season last year with not a damn person watching them.
With nobody.
Incredible tight games they played with no fan support whatsoever. And so it was fun to be able to, go and cheer for them. And it's just fun that, I knew, all the players on the court because, they return most of the players and they're just there. And it's just cool to see him play in action. I'd love to see Johanna take a step forward and Bella, maybe Emma Nankervis backing up Bella. So one big thing was the freshman Tara Wallach. She was the one newbie that got a lot of playing time. I think she actually led the team in minutes, and she's got some height. She could play a 4, I think, a 4 or 3, 3, maybe not a 5, but in a pinch, if they're playing small ball, a 5. She had an outside game. She would put the ball on the deck. She could score inside. I really liked what I saw out of her. I think she's going to be a 6 or 7 person. So like the first or second off the bench, because she that's what she was. She was the first off the bench. I think the only reason she wasn't is because Bella took a shot early in the game on someone trying to take a charge, and so she came out, and Emma Nankervis came in, but then Tara came out and so to get a freshman that could be impactful would be huge for them. And so that's someone to watch out for. Obviously didn't know much about her, but she's from Canada, but apparently she was just dominating up there. And she looked pretty good. And so I look forward to. I think she could be a great kind of 3-4 wing, stretch 4 type player for us.
Yeah, that's awesome because you mentioned Bella and being the key to unlocking something. I mean, we just don't have a lot of athletic size. That's a big when we talk about the difference in athletes between WSU and some of the teams that we play most of the time, that's a lot of times where it shows up in women's basketball because there just aren't that many athletic big players in women's basketball, and they tend to be concentrated at the best programs, which right? I mean, Stanford did that to us last year where it was just like, man, they're just so tall and athletic. Bella's the one person on the roster who can do that. And maybe hopefully this, other recruit can provide some of that maybe a little bit as well.
Plus, she also, interesting. I didn't even look at I did look, but she's listed as a guard. I'd say she probably didn't, because when she was in, she wasn't always, it seemed like she was playing more of a 3, but I definitely was thinking she could have some guard abilities, and she doesn't. She's 6'2". So if you got a guard that's 6'2", she can do she can play 1 through 4. That's awesome. To have that versatile, especially off your bench, to have that versatility is huge. I mean, they also did. She's good. They gave her number 1.
Ooh.
Yeah, she's number 1. If you come in as a freshman and you get that number, that's pretty good. They think highly of you. So
I know another freshman who was number 1.
Yeah,
turned out pretty good.
Exactly. So feel free to be that good, Tara.
Yeah, that'd be all right.
She's from Semiahmoo Secondary School in South Surrey, Canada, which is British Columbia.
Yes.
Yeah. So, so I saw 2. I got volleyball and basketball back to back on Sunday. That was great. That was a treat.
It's a hell of a weekend, man. Love it.
So that is it. That's all. If you're going to listen to us for an hour and 40 minutes, I really think you should subscribe. And to get us in your ear holes for
I agree.
all that time. You don't have to do any work. It just shows up there. It downloads. If you're getting in someplace without service, you got to download it there on your phone. It won't cut out. If you subscribe, then go ahead and rate us 5 stars, and then go ahead and leave a comment, whatever. Tell a friend, tell a Coug friend about it. They'll probably like it. I don't know.
Probably.
Or they won't. I don't know.
Maybe
But
not.
who cares? Tell them. Maybe they'll listen once. We'll get that penny. And then if you want to follow me on Twitter, I had a few people this weekend tell me that they know me from Twitter and they really like my Twitter. So it is Random People in Pullman approved Twitter account at the Craig Powers. And then my Instagram at Craig W. Powers. Jeff, you can see his tweets at pod vs everyone, and you can see a nice little picture of my daughter on the cover from like a long time ago. At this point, she's very
Like
small.
3 years ago.
Yeah, she's very small, very small. In that
Yeah,
picture.
she got a lot more hair than that now.
Yeah, she
Her
does.
hair is very long. Yeah.
She probably wouldn't pose for that picture at this point. She would have her own ideas about what the picture would look like.
Yeah.
Um,
She has a lot of ideas. That's
Yeah.
for sure.
if you want to send us an email, podcastvseveryone@gmail.com. If you have questions, comments, whatever. And with that, I will say once again, go Cougs.
Go Cougs, Craig. Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter.
Get fucking vaccinated.
Do it.